Where should you buy a property in the United Kingdom for rental? Indeed, property prices might be going down, but are there still opportunities to make money? Well, the answer to that is, of course, yes, there are. Check out this video as we go through the details. Hi everyone, my name is Simon Mishevich from Optimised Accountants, and in this video, we are going to be talking about rental income by region. We know that property prices are fluctuating right now with the cost of living and interest rates that's affecting the UK economy. So, withstanding the fact that house prices are moving, what are rental prices doing? If there's less demand for house purchases, does that mean that people are renting properties? And if so, is there a greater demand now in the rental market than the house purchase market? And we're going to go through some of the reports. Here's the first one. I want to go talk about house prices just on the top level, and this is from the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, from June 2022. If you want to see this video, please feel free to pause it and get the URL. As you can see, house prices have increased into June 2022. There is a delay with these reports, so we're obviously waiting now for middle of September before we get to release the new data. As soon as that's released, I will be producing a new video quicker than this one that's come out for June. Just on that point, house prices have increased to 286,000. It is one of the highest prices that the UK housing market has seen in history. So just bear that in mind when people talk about housing market crash, that really, even if it goes back down to 250, what people are talking about here is a correction in the marketplace. It's not a crash as what you might call it. A crash for me might be 30% or 25%, maybe something like that. A market correction could be anywhere between 5 and 8%, something like that, could well be on the cards. ONS talks about average house prices increased by 7.8% over the year to June 2022, down from 12.8% in May 2022. Despite the UK house prices increasing between May and June 2022, annual house price inflation has slowed due to the rises in prices seen since June 2021, which were a result of tax break changes. If you recall, there was this huge tax break in regards to stamp duty land tax holiday, and that's certainly going to have an effect on house prices as it was. The ONS continued that average house price was 286,000 in June 2022, which is £20,000 more than this time last year. So if 20,000 is taken off, let's think about 20,000. It is less than 10%, but it's still only wiping out the year's profits made. So do bear that in mind when people talk about house price crash. It would have to go more than 8% before really it's going to affect house prices from what it was last year. The average house prices in England increased by 7.3% over the year to June 2022, down from an increase of 13% in the year to May 2022. The average house price in England was a record of 305,000 in June 2022. So that's a pretty hefty price tag to put on property, I have to say. However, just thinking about this, what we need to look at is this house rental and house prices. Now, house prices, as we can see, house prices by region, it's slowed down by London. If you look at the graph on the right, it says slowed down by there. But actually, if you look at the areas such as East Midlands, where I'm originally from, house prices are still going up. There's a great demand. So when people talk about house price crashes, where in the UK is that going to be coming from? Is it London, where that's where lots of people might lose their jobs, for instance, if there is a recession, and indeed house prices may not be sustainable for a lot of people. As a result, they may have to decrease prices to sell those properties. But in the north, where house prices are fairly modest, are there going to be a price decrease in those areas? Who's to say at this current point in time? But I would say that London is always going to be affected first. It always has a boom, it always has a crash first, more than any other area. But what you might be wanting to think about is, well, is it still worth buying properties? I would say that a place like East Midlands, you may have a fall. Yes, it might take out this year's profits, but over the long term, the East Midlands and the North East, by the looks of things, certainly has great opportunity for growth going forwards. The ONS, the lowest annual house price growth was in the North East, where average prices increased by 3.6% over the year to June 2022, down from 10.9% in May 2022. The North East continued to have the lowest average house price of £158,000. The North East, £158,000. Now, I remember buying properties in the East Midlands at £90,000, £110,000. Those days have gone. But certainly you can still buy a good property. And we talk about average prices here. So in the North East, I know full well you can still buy properties between the £80,000 and £100,000 bracket and still get a fairly decent rental income yield. Looking at this graph, again, we need to bear in mind this is up to June 2022. The data for July will be fascinating, won't it? Where do you think house prices will be? Please drop a comment below this video. Obviously, we'll be looking at that very closely in the near future, but every single graph on every single line in every region in the UK certainly seems to be increasing in line with one another. ONS said London continues to have the highest average house price in England. Duh, of course. Where would you expect it to be? But let's talk about rental, because that's what really the purpose of this video was about. And this is again from the ONS, so to pause this video if you want to see the recording, the URL is in the screenshot. Okay, UK rents. And it says here the UK annual private rental price growth rose to 3.2% in 12 months to July 2022. Index of private housing rental prices, percentage change over 12 months, UK and London, January 2016 to July 2022. Bit of mouthful, but it basically goes, this graph shows you data from July 2016 to July 2022. The source of information is there for you, so please feel free to pause the video and use that URL. As you can see though, if you look at the UK excluding London, the rental demand is going up, the prices for property is going up, and it's nearly 4%. And I would say that could get even stronger. Let's think about this. When you are a property investor or a landlord, you normally have competition, but competition by the amateur landlord is now dissipating because of Section 24 on complexities of legislation, leaving room now for professional property investors and institutional investors, which is something that we will see more in America, but I rather expect that we will see it in the United Kingdom as well. But 4% increases, and look at those prices for rents going up. Will there be a change? Well, let's put it another way. House prices are going to be going beyond the means of everyone in the UK, therefore resulting in them needing to rent properties. Mortgage interest costs are going to go high as well, so the cost of living for those people might be a bit of a strain to get a mortgage and show their affordability for that mortgage. But for an investor, maybe not so much, and therefore paying a bit more rent may be on the cards. The ONS said the Association of Residential Letting Agents, ARLA, reported in their private rented sector report in June 2022 that the number of properties available for rent is gradually increasing. But rent prices also continue to increase. And that's a fascinating point, because they're saying that the number of properties are increasing and yet demand is outstripping that. So I rather suspect that there may be availability, but over time that will start to wane and there will be a lack of supply and more demand. If we look at the ONS website, they have a nice graph here. It says saying where is the rental price going, and it shows you the increases. And again, if you look at areas such as the East Midlands, look at that, it's nearly creeping up to 4.5% annual growth, which is quite significant. Compare that to London, which has the highest cost of purchasing a property. The increase of rent is just 2%. So it's falling behind where I think the house prices are going in terms of capital. So you're looking for capital growth, London and the south is definitely an area. But I've always maintained if you're looking for rental yield, then London is not necessarily the best place to go. And if you look at where the rental yields might go in the future, well, the East Midlands, The northwest, which is Liverpool and Manchester, properties are fairly cheap still over there. You've got the east of England, property prices are a little bit more higher there. You're talking a place like Cambridge, Bristol, those kind of areas. And then you've got the southwest at 4%. But the north and the East Midlands certainly could be a fairly attractive place for any investor. Yes, property prices will go up over time. Great news. However, in the meantime, obviously we know that property prices might be falling because of recession. But if rental prices and rental yields are going up, is that still not a good opportunity for you to get onto the ladder before property prices go up again? And bearing in mind that you might be able to fix your mortgages for 5 years at the current rate rather than waiting for property prices to decrease further, but the mortgage interest costs are even higher, which will you win or will you lose? And that will be a fascinating question for you to answer. What do you think you should do? Please drop in your comments box below. Again, I just want to look at regions, and there's the dark line which shows the regional change in the northeast, for instance, versus the change of England. And you'll see if it's compared to 2006, so it's going back even further to July 22. But one thing I would say to you, look at the spike. Even though it's just equating now to the same change in England as a national country, the regional change is it's gone into a greater gradient of increase. So the northeast is fairly attractive. If you take that line from 2022, that line would go beyond the national average. Again, if you look at the northwest, look at that. Regional changes is going tremendously now past the change of England as a whole. So again, just demonstrating the power and the demand that is up there. People do not buy houses as much, maybe because of the issues that they're facing with the economy. So therefore, they might want to rent instead. Yorkshire and the Humber pretty much equating to the same as the England average, really, in the last year. East Midlands, again, as I said earlier, look at that spike. It's going up tremendously, and therefore rental yields will be even better in the East Midlands. West Midlands, not so much, and east of England, again, it is outpacing the rest of England. London, as you can see, regional change, the dark line is below the average in England. And that is the point of this video, really. London is not a great place to buy property right now. We think that property prices could be affected down there, and rental yields are even less. So actually, from a capital growth and a rental yield, it doesn't look too attractive to buy properties in London. Southeast, okay, similar to each other. Southwest, that is outpacing the demand in England as a whole. Let's have a look at Rightmove. Again, pause this video for the URL. But what was really interesting, again, pause this video because you might need to just sort of squint your eyes. It's not, you can see it, but maybe look at a bit more detail than I'm going to go through. But it's just more information for you to look at in terms of where the increases and decreases are. It also gives you a nice indicative way of how much money you can get from your rental profits, and then determine how much your rental income is going to be as well. We do have on our website, on optimizeaccountants.co.uk, a rental income tax calculator, so feel free to use that as well. We obviously look in West Midlands, Wales, South West again. Not going to go into too much detail. Please pause this video and just look at that data yourself. Rental prices, Rightmove talks about average asking prices. Rental prices outside London have now jumped by 19%, which is an increase of £177 in the 2 years since the pandemic started. The same growth in rents that took 8 years pre-pandemic to reach. So basically we're seeing a lot more demand, and I rather suspect that demand will not be going away anytime soon. Rental demand is up 6% compared to last year. Available properties are down 26%. And this is contrary to the previous reports we saw. I don't believe there's a jump in the number of available properties. I think there's actually a decrease in this number, simply because there's less landlords that are now buying properties. There are landlords that are selling their properties. We're seeing an awful lot of capital gains tax inquiries for people to sell their properties. And don't forget, if you're looking to sell a property, make sure that you contact Optimize Accountants to give you some assistance of how to minimize CGT. Property Mark will talk about steady stock increases. not enough to dampen rent inflation. So again, even they're saying that there is demand. There is contradictory between is there a great supply or not, and I just don't think there is that much of a supply going forwards, especially in 2023, 2024. Our members reported having 11 properties on average per member branch that were available to rent in June, which isn't a great deal, I've got to be honest with you. There's been a steady increase in available properties since February's low. However, agents reported to signing up 11 new tenancies. So for every property that comes on, it's gone. And that's the thing. If the properties are going on and it's gone later, then basically that should show you that demand is starting to outstrip the supply, especially when you look at the historical data, as they said in February.